Hello, how are you doing today? Hope everyone's doing well. So, today I want to talk about how to survive in really tough times. Well, for me anyway, the way I survived is basically just hyper focused on one thing that I can do on that day. And if I'm having trouble doing that, I would just slip it off. I know that sounds very, very bad advice, but anyway, welcome to valourine talk show. This is just me talking to the camera and talk about mindset stuff, life journey, and just a lot of stuff that we have to deal with every day. Um, so I always feel like when I'm in crisis, like in hyper crisis, it's better to slow down and just to focus on the present moment and to see what needs to be done, not what needs to be done in the now. And I find that to be the most helpful out of everything. But usually that doesn't come until you are in a very tight situation. And as someone who is also an avoidant, I also tend to just slip things off because I feel like when I ignore things, for people, they don't really work. But for me, for some reason, it works. I feel like I live in a very mirror like world, in a mirror like universe compared to normal people. So what usually doesn't work for normal people works for me. And maybe you're like that too, especially if you're neurodivergent, for example. For some people, for neurotypical, maybe hard work is the key to success. But for neurodivergent, the key to success might be a lot of rest. It's like that. And I found when in crisis, I am at my most calm and I just tend to do what I need to do. And usually it's the most efficient way to do things because I feel like you don't get that with when the situation, I know it's probably also trauma. So my nervous system is probably also jacked. But when you are not living your crisis mode, usually that's when the nervous system is a bit anxious because there's nothing going on. But when there is a crisis, the nervous system calms down and just hyper focus on what needs to be done. And it becomes really clear. And I think that's a really good skill to have. And as I say it, because I might be living in a mirror world, maybe the normal people, it's the opposite. When it's in crisis, they go into a mess. They go into a nervous system where it's very dysregulated and becomes completely unable to think, feel, touch, or just be sober and lucid about it all. And I guess this is the advice for those people is just to be hyper focused on what you need to do right now. And when I say what you need to do, I mean like just practical things and just do it. And then you just have to check out. When I mean check out, I mean sleep, take a rest, meditate, whatever it is that you need to do to regulate your nervous system. Because I think, or to express your emotions or to decompress yourself, it's the most important things because I think in crisis the only difference is your nervous system dysregulation. Because in crisis there's always a lot things to do and you just have to focus on those things to get you out. And I think the problem is when the crisis becomes an everyday living, and it stops being a crisis by that point. It becomes a lifestyle that is really toxic, of course. And that's when it's a problem. That's when you actually need to have a step by step plan to get yourself out of that situation. But if you can't, because I think, especially I remember when I was a kid, when you're a kid and you're in a very tough situation and you don't have any power or authority or control over your life, it's quite difficult. I think what I did was just focus on what I needed to do, which was school. Basically, just get school over with, do your homework. And after that, I did a lot of escaping, which I know probably is not a good thing if you're an adult. But I feel if you are a child or if you're in a situation where you can't do anything with your body, the only way out is to manage your mind. And my choice of drugs was comic books, was reading fiction, was learning a new language. I wasn't really into music a lot. I think I was just a lot more into fictional stories because that means I get into other people's reality, other people's world, and the fictions is really helpful. Is really helpful because you are being introduced to an alternate universe that is completely different than yours. Sometimes you might learn a lot of practical things. It's like you're training your mind into having a different future. You are also introducing your mind to different scenarios of all the possible scenarios by running fictions in your head by reading them or by watching animes or by watching Korean dramas or watching telenovela if you're Latinos. Because we used to get like telenovelas as well. For some reason, though, I never really got into Indian drama for some reason. I feel like they were always into too dramatic, just really weird. But yeah, I was into telenovela for a little bit, but I think it's just also introduce your brain into practicing problem solving because with these storylines and fictions, they also introduce resolutions and different endings. And those are kind of assimilations for your brain to choose what kind of endings you want for your situation, and it's a good way of exploring options and also keeping downloading information, um, because what you need is not necessarily more knowledge, but what you need is more scenarios in your brain in terms on how to escape. And I think that's what nonfiction lacks. You introduce techniques, but you can't introduce narrative, and narrative is extremely important. So that's how I focused on my everyday life when I was younger and I wasn't able to get myself out of situation. I just basically daydreamed a lot, slept a lot, and read a lot. And that might be something useful for you if you're still stuck in a crisis mode but you can't do anything about it. I think you just have to focus on what you can do right now and and after that you just have to let it go because you can't hold on to things that you can't control. And I think that's also a choice because we also can choose to be really anxious about things, and we just have to choose a way to get ourselves out of the anxiety. And I think you have to explore that options. I think it's hard if you're working a lot, but also at the same time, if you're working a lot, you're also distracted and you keep being busy from one moment to another. So that's that also the upside of things. And I think there's always a sacrifice for everything. If you like, the costs, the opportunity costs of things, just because. So if you do work, you probably are, sacrificing a lot of, restful times, a lot of repair time for your body, but you're also probably going to have money some sort, even though you're probably surviving. And right now the cost of living is just beyond crazy, and the gap of wealth is widening to the point where I think we might have a revolution soon. We might have a lot of reset, financial reset in the Western world, especially because I think it's about time. When I say about time, I'm not saying like I'm demanding it for it to change, but like cyclically wise, because I think Asia had it about almost 30 years ago, and we had a little bit of that global financial crisis about almost 20 years ago. So we are heading towards another financial crisis or reset of some sort. And I remember when we were, I think like from history, like the reset in 1974 or something in the US that basically made US as the financial reserve, but no longer backed by gold. So I feel, and right now we are having a lot of widening of wealth gap that I feel is a contribution to a lot of the crisis that we are facing right now and a lot of the survival energies that is happening out there. To be honest, I have to say to you, it's not your fault. It's just the way the world is set up. And I think the things that I really learned going through a financial survivorship for the past decade or more, having gotten myself out of the rat race of the employment trap, but not gotten myself out of the financial rat race. Because just because you got off your employment rat race doesn't mean that you got off the, trying to make money trap. Um, is definitely you don't have control over a lot of things. You just have control over what you do in the present moment, and that's definitely what you have to utilize. You just have to focus to do in your present moment and what you can control and what you can do. Maybe right now, all you can do is shop in a supermarket where is the price is cheaper, or maybe you have to buy in bulk, and maybe you have to talk to your neighbors and maybe join your finances when it comes to groceries and buy in bulk so that you can split the cost way more efficiently, and you just buy in bulk and you just split the cost like between maybe 5 households, and you get the same amount of food and groceries but with a lot less price, like with a lot less cost. That might work. Just things like that, like little things. And at work, you might just want to maybe stop being too busy and maybe stop overworking yourself for someone else's profit and kind of regain your energy a little bit so that you can put on maybe a different project at home. And this is just little things that I think we have to kind of recoup when it comes to tough financial times. We can't give our energy to things that is not within our control. We have to rein all our powers back into the present moment and just work through it from the present moment. And if it gets too overwhelming, we just have to take a nap. Anyway, that's it for this video's talk. I will see you in the next video. Just a reminder, also ING Australia has a free $125 cash bonus until the 31st of March 2025 for new customers. You can check out the terms and condition in the link in the description box below. So if you scroll down to the description box and scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see like there's a section there's like 125 free cash bonus. And you can check it out for yourself if you never banked with ING Australia before, or the last time you banked with them was 10 years ago. Feel free to check it out. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye, everyone.